Bread. Who doesn't love bread? The smell alone can feel like a warm hug. But unfortunately, many types of bread can spike blood sugars too high and keep it there for a long time. Nobody wants that. So what about low-carb bread options? Maybe you look through the low-carb options in the bread aisle, but there are so many, which makes one wonder, what are the best low-carb bread options? Don't worry, I got ya. As someone who's lived with type 1 diabetes for over 28 years, I set out to find the best blood sugar friendly but still delicious bread that won't spike blood sugars, still tastes amazing, and is available in most of the larger grocery stores. This, for example, is delicious. Low-carb breads overall falls into 3 categories. Some are low-carb due to the fibers, some due to the size, and some are what I call specialty breads. The bread I eat most mornings fall into that specialty bread category, but not all are good. I'll show you 5 great low-carb breads, 2 that are just okay, and 4 breads that I would stay clear of, because we do not want to waste our money or mess up our blood sugars. I only had 2 rules for picking these breads. They should have less than 12 grams of net carbs, and I should be able to find them in my local grocery store. And that's it. Bread net carbs are total carbs minus fibers. We subtract fibers because they're usually not digestible and therefore won't impact blood sugars. To make this fairly objective, I ate the bread in the morning as part of my breakfast and I took detailed notes. What you just saw me take a bite of is the Hero seeded bread. And that's a fairly good option for a low-carb bread that won't mess up blood sugars. This bread falls into the high fiber category, meaning that the total carb count might be on the higher side, but the amount of fibers drives down the net carbs. This bread really surprised me, and in a good way. It's excellent. It smells nice, and the slices are thick. I do think it needs toasting to be really enjoyable, but I might just have bought a loaf that was slightly stale. Let's take a closer look at the nutrition label. You can see that due to the high fiber content, the net carb is only 1 gram, which explains why I did not see a blood sugar jump after eating this bread. It is made with wheat, so it won't work for you if you have issues with gluten. I do think that you can taste it's a high fiber bread though, but I found it still to be an excellent choice. Another really solid high fiber option is the Arnold Superior Keto. Overall, this is a good slice of low carb bread. A serving is 1 slice, and although the bread seems a bit dense to me, I enjoy the seeds and it feels like a proper slice of bread. I found the blood sugar impact to be fairly neutral, which makes sense if we look at the nutrition label. Here you can see that the net carbs are only 2 grams. Another big plus is that this bread seems to be widely available. I found it at my local stores and I've also seen it at Walmart. But not all of the breads that I tried from the high fiber category are created equal. Take Carbonaut bread. Carbonaut bread. It smells right, it looks the part, but unfortunately, I just didn't like it. It's been a little while since I tried it though, so, well, maybe they made updates to the recipe. My issue with this bread is that you can taste that it's high fiber. It tastes almost a little sawdusty or like overly healthy. I just didn't enjoy it. And yes, it's high in fiber, but so are the other breads in this category. I just think their master baker just haven't quite figured out how to make it taste good. And once toasted, it was so dry that I'm pretty sure you could use it as a cutting board. So Carbonaut bread, I wouldn't recommend. But a brand that really knows how to do high fiber, low carb bread is something called Nature's Own Life. And I tried their Keto Soft White. This really surprised me. I'm usually not a fan of all white bread, but it tastes fairly good. And look at this, I have the back here. Look at the thickness of this slice. It's a really good bread. It's not my favorite though. I think if they had added a few seeds, it might have gotten up there though. But if you're looking for a low carb white bread that has minimal impact on blood sugars, I think this is a really good option. And the final bread that I want to include in the high fiber category is the Sola sliced bread. And this was another pleasant surprise. I've tried other Sola breads in the past. They have different kinds, and this is by far the best one. They have really improved. It's a really decent low carb sliced bread. It's very soft, and it tastes and smells and toasts like regular bread. And look at this, it has seeds. It hardly made a bump in my blood sugars, but what I don't love about it is the size, and it seems less dense than the other high fiber breads. And then there's the nutrition label. Look at the ingredient list. It's long. Seems like they threw everything in the kitchen sink in there, although only in small amounts. So in conclusion, overall, all of the breads that I tried in the high fiber category had fairly limited impact on blood sugars, and they tasted quite good. So I think if you're looking for a bread winner, a low carb bread winner in the high fiber category, it mainly comes down to whether or not you like the taste. But not all low carb breads are created equal, and overall, I was mostly disappointed with the options in the size category. These breads all achieved a lower carb count by simply reducing the serving size. Sara Lee Delightful 45 calorie bread, healthy multigrain was an overall disappointment. My issue is that to make it low carb, the slices are really small. One serving is 2 slices and has 13 grams of net carbs. That put it 1 gram over the net carb count of 12, which is the goal of this review, but I decided to include it anyway. What this bread has going for it is that it smells really nice and it can be eaten without being toasted, which is a good thing because it is so thin that toasting it pretty much just kills the bread. The advertised multigrain and low calorie is a little bit of a gimmick to get you to buy the bread, I think. And this is one of the reasons why I always read the nutrition label. The general recommendation is at least 2.5 grams of fiber per slice. So it does have an acceptable amount of fiber. It is a whole wheat flour bread, which is also great, but it also has sugars. And look here, the 5th ingredient is actually straight up sugar. Based on the slice size, the sugar, and overall blood sugar impact, I wouldn't buy this again. And then we have this little sad loaf of bread, the Pepperidge Farm Light 7 grain. Can you tell I wouldn't recommend it? It only has 1 gram of fibers per slice, which is below the overall fiber recommendation by the American Diabetes Association. And with 8 grams of net carbs per slice, I think most people will see a blood sugar impact like I did, especially because I don't think anyone will just eat 1 slice. See, like 1 slice of this bread? You can't eat 1 slice and feel full. Aside from the slice of bread being pitifully small, I also found the smell to be really yeasty and the taste was very sweet. On the loaf I bought, a serving is listed as 2 slices. However, I've seen this bread listed online where a serving was 3 slices. I guess that makes more sense when you take this small slice into consideration. However, at 3 slices, it can no longer be considered a low carb option. If you come across it at your local grocery store, I'd recommend you just pop that back on the shelf. The next 2 loaves that I've included in the size category are also loaves that you're really likely to see when you browse the bread aisle. And I want you to know what to expect if you choose any of these. Because if you've gone looking for low carb bread, I'm sure you've seen Dave's Killer Bread on the shelves. It's supposedly the most sold organic bread in the US. I chose the Good Seed thin sliced bread for this review simply because that was the bread with the lowest carb count that was available at my local store. The total carb count is 13 grams, fiber is 3, which is pretty good for normal bread, and that leaves us with a net carb count of 10 grams. It definitely feels and looks like an ordinary slice of sandwich bread, but I did find that the slices were a little on the smaller side. I also found the taste a little too sweet and it hit my blood sugars pretty hard, which just didn't work for me, so I don't see myself buying this again. The final loaf that I decided to include in the size category is the Nature Harvest Light Multigrain Bread. And you could have fooled me. Put that bread in a Sara Lee Delightful packaging and I would not have been able to tell the difference. It makes sense. It's baked by a large commercial bakery that also bakes other popular brands such as Thomas Muffins and the Sara Lee bread. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that, and the Nature Harvest loaf did live up to my expectations of what a sandwich loaf should look and feel like. But just like with the Dave's Killer Bread, I did find the taste to be a little bit too sweet. And like other of these breads that reduce the carb count through the slice size, a serving is 2 slices rather than just 1. A single slice only has 7 grams of net carbs though, so it's actually fairly easy on blood sugars. I think it's an okay bread. Would I buy it again? Well, if this was the only low carbish bread I had access to, probably. So that's why I gave it a little stop and think simple. Overall, if you're considering a bread from the size category, I suggest that you pay attention to the serving size as well as to the net carbs per serving. And you also have to think about, will eating such a small slice of bread really be worth it for you? It's a bit of a tricky category as I didn't really love any of the breads. And the last bread category is a specialty bread category. And just so happens that my favorite low-carb bread falls in this. I eat it pretty much every day. But before I sing the praise of my favorite loaf, I want to show you the other low-carb bread in this category, and that is the BFree brown seeded sandwich loaf. I'm a little nervous that they're discontinuing the low-carb version and rolling out a higher carb one. So pay attention if you go get this bread, okay? It has to be the one in the brown packaging. I have this in the specialty bread bucket because it's a completely gluten-free bread. The base isn't wheat, but rather maize, buckwheat flour, and potato starch. This also means that it doesn't really seem like this bread maker's main goal was to make a low-carb bread. It just so happens that the net carb is only 10 grams. I found this bread at Whole Foods, and I really like the size of the slice, the taste, and the texture of the bread. It has a slightly nutty flavor. The only reason why I didn't give it a green check mark, but rather a stop and think simple, is that it did impact my blood sugar somewhat, which I guess is due to the potato starch. Now let's talk about my favorite low-carb bread, and maybe surprisingly, it's actually not the one with the lowest carb count. The overall winner for me is Ezekiel sprouted grain bread or Ezekiel muffins. I could eat this every day, and as you can see, I actually often do. It's so good. And I know it won't have a big impact on my blood sugars. With 12 net carbs, it's not the bread with the lowest carb count, but it's been a favorite of mine for years. I eat them every morning. As you can see, it's empty. It has a slightly nutty flavor, and it tastes and toasts exactly like a whole grain muffin if you choose the muffins. If you choose the sliced bread, it's gonna of course taste like whole grain sliced bread. What makes this bread really unique is that it's made completely out of sprouted grains without any flour, so it has a lower glycemic index than regular bread. That means that it should give less of a blood sugar spike than regular breads, as it gets converted into glucose in the bloodstream more slowly. You do have to pay attention to serving size though. If you go for a muffin, a serving size is only half a muffin. For me, this bread is a winner because it's low glycemic, so it doesn't spike my blood sugars, and it tastes like real bread. However, although this bread is low glycemic, you still have to pay attention as the carb count does put it towards the upper limit for low carb bread. My suggestion is, if you decide to try this out, measure your blood sugars before, as well as about an hour and a half after you enjoy the bread, and see how it impacts you. Basically, find out what works for you and your blood sugars. Bread is amazing, and if choosing a low-carb option makes it easier for you to keep your blood sugars exactly where you want them, then why not? And if you prefer a low carb, there are several options now. It's not just for bread. Check out this review where I try out a lot of different low-carb snacks, and I give you a scoop of which ones are blood sugar friendly. And while you do that, why not subscribe to my channel and turn on notifications? That way, you'll never miss a thing. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.